how he would lead us through this process. And so with the guidance of our interior design group, we sat down with Paul and discussed with him what we could do with our facilities, and we even went to some of the churches that have done a redesign work to lay the foundation and to get some idea of what we're going to be doing. And so Gail and Dick Landholm and Jeff and others launched this process. And during COVID, we had to shift gears and do a lot of the work through Zoom. But we were able last summer to meet with Paul, and you could hear what Paul was thinking about, and he could hear what you were thinking about as far as what you think the priorities of our church are now and in the future. And he took that information and put it into this magical machine. And it came up with all sorts of different ideas. And during the course, we utilized another group of people who had many engineering backgrounds and who could understand some of that technical work that Paul was talking about. And we also consulted with BJS Construction Company to get some costs estimates with all of the work that they proposed. And like I've been saying in the worship services the last couple Sundays, we're not here to vote, we're not here to approve anything. We're just here to gather the information, see what Paul and we have envisioned for this congregation. And what we would like to do after the presentation, this is going to be a lot of information. And so we want you just to settle in, digest it, think about it, discern, and then get back together with some open forums to discuss together what you like, what you don't like, what you're for, what you're against it, all of those things. I mean, we want all of the feedback. And even get a chance to perhaps we can arrange for, as Greg was suggesting, perhaps having you come through the building and take a look at what we're seeing and point out some different things that we saw that need to be addressed and how they can be addressed. Because when you see some, it's like living in a house for many years. Sometimes you just don't see things like, new people who walk in with you. So to look at the building with fresh eyes, but with the focus of mission. So if we want to grow as a church and we want new people to come in and join our home here with our family, we want to make sure that when they come, that they feel comfortable, that they instinctively, intuitively know how to manage, how to get around. We know how. We know how to get to the youth room. Not everybody, when they walk through, know how you need a bread trail to get through that. We also know, we see the needs, and you've been talking about doing repairs for a while. And so how do we put all of that into a greater plan so that when we tackle a piece or a couple pieces, how it fits into the bigger whole? And so Brian and Jim are handing out the handouts for the design, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul Barrow, who has been just outstanding in working with us, and to just reassure you, we're not putting shovels in the ground in July. We want to make sure we did things right. And we want to get this process so that we're on board and we're excited about this. And it is going to be exciting. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Paul Barrow.
I think I have about 30 seconds left, and then I'm ready for that. I'm Paul Barrow from Groth Design Group. I'm the director of our religious studio. And some of you may remember back when we did the visioning workshop at some time ago. But I've been working with your congregation, and my staff has been helping to create a vision for you that hopefully will guide you as you make both short-term and long-term decisions. And of course, everything that I showed you is really the starting point for engaging with the congregation to see where your passions are, what you think will be fruitful. And in the future, as you adopt different components of it, things always change because the church is always on the move and moving through a society that always has different needs over time. Things like a master plan need to get readjusted. I want to say a little bit about a master plan, because what we're putting before you is large. And I don't want that to scare you. I think what your committee and your council have done has been responsible. I was once told if you end up doing your master plan in one step, it's not a master plan. Ideally, the master plan provides you with long-term guidance. The reason that that has value is not to say that in the future something won't need to change or tweak, but if your congregation says this is what this plan embodies, our vision for who we are as people of God serving the world, then what it does is it allows you to do short-term maintenance or short-term renovation, knowing that anything that's done in the short term will be valuable. When I started working with churches 30 years ago, it was not uncommon for our firm to come in and start working with the church, and the things that they need meant that we had to go back and then do something that had been done relatively recently in the past, because nobody thought about what was going to be beyond that first step. And we don't want to do that. As Pastor Brian said, there's not going to be a shovel in the ground soon. That's not why we're presenting this to you, to get some building project going. Nothing's decided, and the master plan itself tries to stay as fluid as possible. So if you see a color of a carpet in the images that you go, gosh, I really don't like that, don't worry. Nothing has been carved in stone at this point. This is just to give you a vision of long-term opportunities. When I met with, following the visioning workshop where we collected a lot of information, when I met with people from your ministries to flesh out even more specifics of your needs, we came up with I think it was a 13 or 16 page document of everything that people said, and we have tried as best we can to embody what we heard. I'm not going to run through that list. If anybody's interested in seeing it, ask somebody from the committee. It's not a secret document. You can see what people in the congregation that lead your ministries ask for. But we do have some design comments that I think are worthy of putting in front of you today. So number one, the building and the entry should invite people into the building and welcome them. And the wayfinding or the path through the building should be clear. Nothing is more challenging to visitors to a church than to come in and feel like you don't have a clue where to go. The preschool that is currently housed in your building should be secure and safe. Music ministries, which are currently on the lower level, but have to do some of their ministry, that the most important part of their ministry on the main level in the church building, should be on the same level as the worship space to be able to facilitate people serving the congregation through music programming on Sundays. The building services at the main level should be generous. What I mean by that is, when you built in 2000, architects can manipulate the code to some extent. We can't do everything that we'd like to sometimes, but we have flexibility to be able to push and pull the code. And one of the requirements in the code is having the right number of restroom facilities for a building. My guess is, because you have really large bathrooms in the basement, that in 2000, the basement restrooms were factored into the restroom count for the number of people that you have in worship. But of course, most people in worship aren't going to go down to the lower level restroom, right? Unless you've got the time and everything here is filled. Your restrooms on this level are really, really tiny. And so we looked at those and said, wouldn't it be great if we had more provisions, not just for the things that are required for ministry, but the things that support those required ministries. The gathering and the fellowship should be fluid and flexible. It should offer a variety of opportunity for interaction among members and between members and visitors. And it should be current. Now, that's a difficult thing to define. Sometimes people use the word, we should make it contemporary. That's always a challenge in church groups. Sometimes we talk about worship and hospitality spaces as having kind of the old school feel of traditional space. What we're finding is that the future growth of the church is dependent on the space feeling up to date and current. Doesn't mean it has to be modern. It doesn't mean it can't be traditional. It just means when people come in, it should look fresh and inviting and speak to the future of the church, not the past. We needed an increase in meeting spaces, conference spaces, and office spaces, that those things would be beneficial. And in fact, we have even components beyond what you'll see this morning that plan for future office expansion and expansion of other programs beyond what is in the master plan that we'll look at. And then storage and maintenance, a work area that's bigger than the shed in the back of the parking area. And I've yet to work with a church that didn't need more storage, and more storage convenient to where the ministries were happening. So, this is your existing building. I'm just putting it up here in case we need to go back and refer to something. I'm always amazed at the numbers of people that haven't been through the entire building. Sometimes you don't have to go places in the building. You may not know what's on both levels. And then I'm going to walk you through, starting with the site, just the provisions that we have made in the master plan. And the handouts are available. I've recommended that the planning team make digital copies available on website if that's appropriate to do. Maybe some committees don't want to make it public until things are decided. But we've got the ability to get information too. So I'm going to go through it relatively quickly to give you the components, and you'll have plenty of time to look it over in greater detail, and then come back and discuss and ask questions. We'll have time where we can ask questions at the end. So north is to the right of the screen. This is your site, and here are the things that we're proposing. So number one, to improve the southeast entry so that it is more visible and more open. That area was designed with a canopy that could be added, a drive-through canopy that could be added at a later date, although it's not being proposed right now as a part of the master plan. The preschool area has asked for a learning area outside. They currently, I think, have an area now. But the place that we've identified that is just to the south of the gathering space, outside, where the door from the stairway goes out to grade. And as a part of that, we're proposing an entry, an airlock entry, and to allow that entry to be specifically the entry that the preschool will go in. And that's partly because we're proposing to relocate where this preschool is currently located. On the Circle Drive, that will be maintained, but we are proposing that the drive that goes out to Davidson Road be paved with pavers that can grow grass. So the majority of the time, that drive will no longer be an entry onto the property, but as an entry point for emergency vehicles or for emergency circumstances, it will still be able to be driven onto. Part of the reason that we've taken that approach is because it will leave the entrance apron in the street. My recommendation to congregations is never get rid of something that's already been approved in the municipality or access drives. Even if you don't think you'll need them, sometime in the future you may need to get it back, so we want to leave that there and just de-emphasize it as a main entry point onto the property. And by doing that, it will help visitors and members of your congregation end up more easily into the parking areas that can be served by the main entry. And then for maintenance, we plan to reseal and restripe the parking lot, replace some of the sidewalks, replace windows, and replace siding on the building where those things are in need of maintenance. So those things have been factored into the master plan. And then finally, an addition of a work area on the end of the original church building where the youth currently have their programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we've designed that into the master plan as well. So this is the lower level. All areas of the lower level get new finishes that have been provided for in the master plan, except the mechanical rooms and the restrooms, which are right in the middle, and some of the smaller storage and mechanical areas. But everything else can get a facelift and a refreshing approach to new finishes, carpets, paint, that sort of thing. We are hoping to be able to make a connection between the lower level through the classrooms that are farthest east to the basement that is under your addition number 2. That was number 2, let's put the basement in there. Storage and mechanical now. If it's possible to do, we hope to make a connection so that getting things from that area of the building doesn't require going outside. A little blow up of that area so to help orient you. Here is the main stair that goes down to the basement. Here's that basement from addition number 2. So with respect to the preschool, we are planning to relocate the preschool on this level. And then to be able to make the pathway down there easier and to make the space secure. One of the things that in schools and preschool and childcare spaces that has changed dramatically over the last 20 years is the need for security, to not have unwanted people in preschool spaces. And it's been a challenge for churches because the buildings were set up that way. And additionally, churches have lots of people coming in for things like funerals that you can't restrict people from the building, but you may not always know who those people are. So one of the things that we will do is to provide a separate entry off of the parking at the level of the main stair, and then to increase the width of the stair to allow for more, better two-way traffic up and down the stairs. And then to provide, at the bottom of the corridor, a control door that can be locked, and staff in the preschool can let people in and out. So the basement level that the preschool will be using can be secured. So nobody can get in there when preschool is operating without somebody letting them in. Where your current music room is, we are creating a preschool office, which you have on this level, a preschool, and then 2 small, well, 1 medium and 1 small storage area for the preschool storage, which you also have those things on this level. And then we are locating or relocating the banner room, which is currently down here, up to this corner. That's really trading 1 for 1. There is a little bit of an advantage if people are coming out of the banner room and going up the stairs over to the stairway behind the kitchen to get up to the worship level. The reason we're relocating the banner room is because as we look at preschool classroom here, preschool classroom here, and preschool motor skill room in this location, the preschool rooms need to have access to plumbing and restrooms. So we're providing a door from this preschool classroom into the women's restroom that can be unlocked and used during the week by children in the preschool program. And we are creating where the banner room is, a restroom that opens up into this area of preschool classroom. That will allow the preschool to have access to toilet facilities and water without having to leave classrooms, which is also part of the safety and security of those spaces. And then finally, overall, so all of the new finished areas are shown in blue on this diagram, so we're replacing all those finishes. We have the opportunity of creating new storage areas in any of these rooms to be able to store more things where it's more convenient for the ministries that will use those spaces. And then right now, there is potential for programming for junior high or conference room and maintaining the building that's currently in this room. I want to say a little bit about the junior high. So your education director saw this plan and was concerned about the location of the junior high. And we haven't had the time, this was 3 weeks ago, something like that. We haven't had the time to figure out exactly how to accommodate the junior high program. But I just want you to know, we've heard that. And so as we move forward with any kind of planning, we'll have to figure out how best to meet the needs of the junior high. She felt that this was too remote in the basement, at least at that end of the building. And we haven't had a chance to really talk that through or work it out. But I want to be respectful for her leadership and programming and the needs of that ministry. So on the main level, the areas that are shown in orange are new space. So we have a new vestibule at the entry, and we have the vestibule at the staircase over here that would be the preschool entry. And then we have the workroom up in the corner. And I'm going to blow this up. I know this is really small, some of you are fairly far away, and I'm going to try to walk you through it. So this is a blow-up of the main entry on the southeast. So we're providing an airlock vestibule so that there is not the transfer of cold or hot either way when we don't want the climate in the building to be modified by outside temperature. We've created a lobby that is more generous and have moved the coat area. Part of what we have done in reconfiguring the building and programs in the building, because right now your preschool is here. By opening this area up when we move preschool, it is a straight shot into the gathering space, and we have a straight shot over to where the youth are currently located. So wayfinding in the building becomes that much easier. It's not really too terribly difficult from this north entry, but trying to get to your conference room, or trying to get to the youth program, or to the small chapel area, it's a bit of a challenge for somebody that doesn't know where they're going. And then we have provided for coat area and for 2 new restrooms that each will have 5 toilet or toilet and urinal fixtures on this level. We've also made provisions for the donation area, which happens over in this corner of this room and out in the gathering space here. And we also have another storage area over here. And that allows us to take the donation area out of this area of the building and relocate. And as I said, we've got a separate preschool entry and then the improved stair going to another level. So fellowship and gathering. This space was never designed for fellowship. This was the worst space for many years. And then the gathering and worship were added, and this was turned to a fellowship. In these spaces, we are clearing out a lot of the stuff in between this space and that space, including walls. We have a beverage serving counter, what I would call, because it's Wisconsin, a coffee bar. Guys, a bar, incredible organization. So we have a coffee station here. We have a counter for hospitality, very similar to what you have now, and a fireplace that helps create a division between the fellowship portion and the gathering portion of one large room. Your existing fellowship hall, this space, is 2,500 square feet. The open space that we have using gathering and a part of this space and cleaning out the library and the donation area gives us an open space that is 3,500 square feet. And it is designed to be able to be incredibly flexible. So when you have need for more gathering, you can expand into the fellowship area. And when you have need for more fellowship, you can expand into the gathering area. It was interesting today. So because of COVID, when I started working, I usually attend worship. But I had never been to worship because we were in the middle of COVID when I got started. And I think we had a meal here when I was here for the visioning workshop. But it's interesting to watch how you do food because you really do it in multiple stations. And the way this is set up would allow for that same sort of thing to happen as well in this expanded space because we've got beverage bar and we've got regular kitchen and serving spaces alongside of it. In the far end of this room, we have created 3 areas: a conference room or a meeting room in this corner, a conference room and a meeting room in this corner that are enclosed, and in between those rooms, a significantly sized storage area for tables and chairs and things that need to be used in either conference or in gathering fellowship spaces. So there is a lot more table and chair storage, and it is a lot more convenient to get.
Excuse me, where are you going to put the key? You have got the choir here, right? Over there. This is going to be choir now.
No, this is just conference and music, and conference and meeting, and conference and meeting over here. If I said music.
Oh, is this no. Oh, this is added on. This.
No, that's the worship space.
Oh, that's the same. Hello.
That's okay. You're not used to reading plans. I am. So.
I'm not good at directions.
So, as a part of this proposal, there is contemplation that also needs a lot more discussion about expanding the kitchen and then creating, so not only making the kitchen bigger, but also providing then a serving area similar to what you have in this counter, but now it's kind of its own space just for serving. We have a nursery where the existing nursery is, but there's a couple things that we're doing different. We're making that space larger. We're creating glass in between the gathering and the nursery so that visiting mothers or young mothers in the congregation actually know it's there and it doesn't feel like a small closet. And we are providing a separate changing room. And there's a single-use restroom here, but the changing room here is a changing area specifically dedicated to the changing of children of that nursery space. so that mothers in the congregation or mothers visiting the congregation or fathers, parents, or siblings can tend to young people in a controlled, safe environment and tend to their needs with changing diapers. And then, as I said, we've got a storage area in between the two meeting rooms up here. Additionally, the small rooms that are over in your current table and chair storage area, there's a number of things over there. We're cleaning those out and creating a maintenance storage/office area. So when we talked to Dan and showed Dan the plans, he actually said, I'd like my office to be in that space. It's a nice size space. You'll have plumbing for being able to do mop and other kinds of cleaning stuff, and all in one location over in the corner. So there's a question, where is the library? So, the library, that room will not be there. Yes, but you've got a lot of other spaces that are flexible enough to be able to handle either book sort of storage things. So most libraries still have some books from the past that are used or available to congregation members. Those could be in either of these conference meeting rooms or in some of the spaces downstairs. But more and more churches are moving toward having Wi-Fi access to members and having access to digital equipment that doesn't have to be maintained in the same way. Every congregation figures that out a little differently on how best to address those needs for education. And that room becomes a part of the fellowship gathering. So, included what architects call an axonometric. So if you see the word axon, it just means axonometric. That's architect speak, and that's just to give you the assurance I know what I'm doing. Or courtroom. It gives you a picture of the building. It's kind of like you take the three-dimensional space of the building and you cut it off at a certain level, and it gives you the ability to see down into those spaces. And so again, this is your existing kitchen but expanded. Here's the hospitality, the serving area, the stair. All of this space is now open, flexible space for people to be able to use however they see fit with a great deal of flexibility. For offices, all of the existing offices in this area of the building stay the same. We are moving the music rehearsal area to the area of the building that right now has the youth office and the conference room. We've redirected the corridor to go straight to the youth room and then created a music room. And then also where the former entry is, we are taking out the restrooms that are there, which are really small, and closing the main entry at that location, the original entry, and putting in 3 offices, a custodial area, office storage, and then on the corner over here, putting in a server room or a room that can be used for technology storage. So again, server room, custodial closet. We've got the donation storage, some of it in that location. And then, that's supposed to say just storage. And again, the wayfinding, right now, it's always kind of interesting because when I was picking up plans for the church and then dropping them back, Get a drop box over in that corner, even though the office reception is over in this corner. Try to get from that entry around to find where you're supposed to go in the building. It's a bit of a challenge. The wayfinding through the building will be much, much simpler to find offices and be able to get back and forth between the offices in the southeast entry. And then finally, in the youth area, we have a workroom and storage addition that in footprint is 1,200 square feet. It has double door access for loading and unloading off of the parking area. Shows one door now, but it may be a double door getting back and forth into the building as needed. And then we also have the youth room that is right now designed to be 1,100 square feet. The youth are using a little bit of a program to be able to get the music ministry up to the main level. So, this might be a little dark. Bear with me, I'm going to, I darkened this before so the plans would read. And I'm going to brighten it back up. That should work. So the main entry, we've opened up the new vestibule and raised the roof to give that entry more prominence and to bring natural light further into the building. Part of the reason we've raised this portion of the roof, as I said earlier, is that we have designed this roof to be able to turn into a drop-off covered canopy. Whenever the congregation says that's what we'd like to do. What that looks like from the front, so much more generous and welcoming. And the mechanical, or the workroom storage area on the end of, this is the original church building here, and we've just provided an extension on that building that matches the same language as the rest of the building. Again, this interior image of the gathering and fellowship. I failed to note, we're also expanding some of the storage that's right now in the ushers room for worship storage. So 2 large conference rooms, a large table and storage and chair storage area, and then a flexible fellowship and gathering space. This is an image of the gathering looking from the main southeast entry from that corridor. One of the things, in addition to moving the preschool, that we were able to do, in addition to providing the expanded restrooms of that corridor, also widens. So the pathway as your main pathway into the building also becomes more generous. Here is the stair that we're reconfiguring. The serving area is right behind the worship doors, which we have spruced up and made a little more prominent in the space. And then the hospitality counter. Looking more from inside that space, this is the coffee serving area, the worship doors, and the hospitality counter. So we've given this space a facelift. And as part of that, we intend to make your worship doors feel more present. That is, after all, one of the reasons why people come here is to celebrate worship together. Looking from the worship entry back towards that gathering fellowship space. So again, the hospitality counter. coffee serving counter, nursery area. This is the office. Window into the reception office, fireplace, and then the fellowship area. Again, these are designed for these spaces to be completely flexible. Looking more toward the fireplace and the fellowship area, this is the wall that behind which is the table and chair storage. This is one of the conference and meeting rooms in this corner. And then no barriers between fellowship and family. And then looking from inside this space, back toward the fireplace. So here's that office, reception office window, fireplace. This is the wall right along there. And then the conference room, meeting room is just off this image. And then looking from the fireside area back toward the gathering. So here's the fireplace, which is roughly in the middle of the library, where the library currently is. The gathering space beyond hospitality, counter, worship doors, and the windows inside. That's just an image, very, very conceptual image of how the ceiling gets redesigned. One of the hard parts about carving up this space for other ministries is how to deal with a ceiling that wasn't designed for carving up those spaces, and we've got provisions to soak up sound. These spaces will not work for fellowship and gathering purpose if they don't have
air conditioning.
And air conditioning, yes. As part of the master plan, all of the maintenance things related to existing mechanical systems and units, including providing air conditioning, have all been incorporated in the plans. So, probable cost. Included in all the costs is the cost of construction itself, including the contractor's overhead costs, provisions in the costs to cover all of the necessary architectural and engineering fees and soft costs, so things like permit fees and survey fees and all of that stuff. And then what the contractor who helped price all of this stuff is calling development cost. So things like the costs associated with getting utility upgrades into the building, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, hazardous material abatement, building signage, builder's risk insurance, and then order contingency. One of the things that we've partnered with Boss Jorgen Schuler of BJS Construction Services. I'm old school, I remember them by their name. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't leave anything off the table that needed to be priced. So we've got a very good breakdown. The construction costs are about $3.8 million in today's dollars. The architectural and engineering is about $344,000, and the development costs are another $403,000. For a total, and this is master plan, a total of $4.58. And I will take this opportunity to say again, I don't know how big a step you will take. That's not the first question. The first question is this meet your vision for ministry? And then we figure out how to move responsibly through either 1 or 2 or 20 separate stages of getting them. There were some alternates. So alternate one was to replace the original roof over the original church. The reason we showed this as an alternate is because that roof still has some life in it. So we broke it out as a separate cost because it may not be replaced right away. And when we designed the addition on the workroom service area, we lowered the roof so the roofs don't tie together. They're close. But that way, you can add on without affecting that roof, and later on, when it's time to do the roof, you can replace that roof. The casework or the storage areas that I showed in the basement to pick up additional storage at the 4 rooms at the far end, that casework is about $27,000. And then the commercial kitchen. This will take a little bit of unpacking. I'll try to just keep it simple. Right now, you don't have a commercial kitchen. More and more churches, when we make changes to kitchens, it is harder to do that and not have the county health department say, you need to now upgrade to a commercial kitchen. So we've priced a commercial kitchen. But that's not to say that you have to do yet a commercial kitchen. That would be a discussion with the county to find out how you use the space and what their requirements will be. More and more churches have to make their spaces more compliant with commercial kitchen code. And I can't believe COVID is going to make that any easier. So we've given a number to it, but it's a very, very broad number because we don't know what all those facilities would be. So let me just say a little bit about next steps. Or Pastor or Brian, if you want to say anything here about next steps, what I'll say is, so this is put in front of you not as a way to say, you know, you're going to vote today or you're going to make decisions today. That's not the way most churches need or want to move. We're putting it in front of you so that in the next few weeks or months, you can discern, is this the right thing for your ministry? That's the first question. And to give the church an opportunity then of allowing you to look over all of the information in a more leisurely way, with more information. And then to decide, is this the right vision for our congregation? And if it is, then start to discern when you take steps. And that's, I'm not coming at that with any presupposed time. You've got a parking lot that needs to be repaved. Well, if you said the master plan fits our vision, then you know what areas of the parking lot will have value to actually do maintenance. Because you probably wouldn't mind doing maintenance to something that's going to change, unless you absolutely have to.
So that's not in this case. The parking lot paving is not in.
The parking lot paving is in there.
Well, it isn't.
So reparative parking and restoration and taking out this drive. And again, I've had churches that said the master plan is our master plan, but we're just going to restart the block because we're paying off debt or we're doing something else that keeps them from taking the larger step. Every church needs to have an idea of where they're going with their buildings and grounds in order to do small steps or enable or to be able to do feasible large chunks of space. And that will now be for your congregation and for you to decide what has value and what's feasible to afford. But you have a master plan that enables you to understand potential changes and what those things might cost. In today's dollars, if you wait 10 years, that number is going to be different, right? But still, it gives you an idea of the magnitude of the work. Yes?
Just one question. Is there any consideration of using solar panels to generate electricity to help cut down on?
We have not explored solar, but you've got a lot of roof that could be put to use to be able to do that. So as a part of any undertaking, it would be a good thing to think about because you want to make sure your renovation of the infrastructure is there to be able to get where you need to go to store energy. But I've had a number of clients that have PLC Church and Mass, and that's currently putting solar panel on their building as kind of shades for windows. So cutting the sun, but collecting that energy. Yes.
So just in regards to, can you actually put up the slide for the main, like the picture of the main?
The main.
Like this.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because I think I'm going to try to ask this question before.
Yeah, so the first question was about have we made provisions for solar collection on the building? And we haven't, but I wouldn't take it off the table. More and more churches are doing that. And then this question, I think, relates to main level.
That question. Okay. So my question has been trying to, I'm very interested in like youth programming for high school and middle school. So is there any thought that can be given to taking those? So is there any thought, instead of putting the music here, putting the junior high school here so they'd be really close to like maybe more congregated with all the youth in the junior high? Could you use one of these rooms for music?
That's certainly possible. I think we probably have to make one of these a little bit bigger to get the music program and the storage in. But that's exactly why we put these things out there, because
you're all together on Sunday nights a lot, and dinner we are together, like in fellowship, and then we kind of split apart in our own teaching. But to have them all in the same wing, it may create some, better kind of camaraderie between the two.
Sure.
Just a thought process.
Yeah. No, I mean, for those of you who are on the committee, and I'll try to do this too, keep that in mind, because as I said earlier, we've got to solve that junior high issue with the buildings as you take steps moving forward. Yes?
So in this mock-up, the dining gathering area right here is much smaller. So if for this group right here, meeting with you, we wouldn't fit.
So what we'd have to look at how you represent using then a larger space beyond this building, but how that gets configured in a way that you can actually do presentations. I don't know if you noticed, but we had the wood wall that was kind of, I mentioned the table and chair storage was behind that. So it's probably someplace in here. Originally, I showed a screen, like permanently mounted on that wall that would be visible all through the space. And then I didn't want to make that decision for you to put a screen on the wall, so I took it off. But I think we'll have opportunity to do that. It's just going to be configured a little bit different. So we do lose space over here, but we gain a fair amount of space right now where donations and library is, and then there's no barrier to extend further out into the gathering space. Yes?
You have a note here for the 6 or 8 inch water service. Is that something that's going to be required no matter what we do?
I believe the restrooms are what is going to trigger that, if I'm not mistaken. Often it's a sprinkler system that triggers that. You already have sprinkler in this building, so that I'm seeing things.
We just redid the sprinkler system.
So it was the contractor and the engineer, either the mechanical or the plumbing engineer basically said, we need a new line. And I'd have to look through their report to see exactly why they were doing it.
But they feel the sewer system is adequate. You go up to a 6 or 8 inch water service, you have to examine the sewer.
Can you remember the discussions on sewer? I'd have to go back to the report to see if they were recommending that too. So I showed notes on here that, and part of the reason for looking at that water line was east, right? We need to repave the Circle Drive, redo that. That's time to actually put in the upgrade to that water line.
So the water line is over here.
Is it further down?
That's where you have the dash line. You have the gas line coming out there.
Okay, maybe it was the gas line.
You're talking about increasing the gas line.
So I can check into that and give you a little more insight on why that was recommended to be upgraded.
The second item is the library in this area is going away, so that space is added while the conference room's taken away. Was the question over there, are there any movable walls?
So there are not movable walls, but that doesn't mean that you can't look at that as a possibility as plans evolve. Originally, this area, in some of our preliminary designs, this area was going to be carved up, stay intact as a large area, but have dividable walls, movable walls in it. And then we moved the design away from that because, well, for a couple of reasons, but part of it is the cost of those walls is pretty substantial, and the structure associated with movable walls can be fairly high as well.
And the two conference rooms made still accessible to 2 fire exits.
Yes. Yes, so we have to still think about how people exit from those rooms and from this area.
Thank you.
Yes.
What did you say about solar?
So if solar is required, well, that was one of the questions that we've done provisions for solar. We have not. But as you undertake projects, there's 2 things that you have to be thinking about. So if you re-roof, or if you're going to, you don't necessarily want to put solar right on the roof before re-roofing. So if you're going to upgrade the roof, if you're going to put in solar, make sure that your roof is upgraded first. There's opportunities for doing solar on buildings, not just on the roof. And then as you implement any building renovation, make sure that you have the adequate infrastructure for the lines and storage that would be required for the solar provisions.
We have a large area down the hill here for a ground mounted solar capability without impacting
Okay,
the delicate nature of the roof.
right. Yeah, I have not done any projects where solar was done on ground level or on grade, but I'm familiar with projects that it's.
I've just gotten some recent estimates for that.
So nothing that we'll be doing with the building itself would impact doing anything with solar on the ground.
Keep it off your roof takes a lot of problems off your roof.
It can be a challenge. The church I'm working with in Madison is doing both solar awnings and they're doing roof. They don't have a lot of sites, so they don't really have an option. Yes.
On any given Sunday, will there be 3 rooms available to one private class?
So the
So what will be available on Sundays?
No, of course,
Can you repeat the question first, please?
oh, sorry.
How many rooms?
So the question was, how many rooms will be available on a Sunday morning for things, I'm assuming things other than the regular education program? And these two corner rooms very likely could be available. And this end of the gathering space may also be available. Part of the reason we did the fireplace the way we did is to help, along with the roof or the ceiling line in these buildings, to make a separation between the two areas of that large open space. So some of that program, depending on the program, could happen in one area while gatherings don't happen.
Okay, the basement is a conference room also?
So there, right now it's labeled as conference, labeled as junior high. We've got to work with the education leadership to determine what will be used in which of those spaces. Yes.
I was just thinking about the windows in this large gathering space. We have those wonderful windows. But in this area, we'll lose these, right? Because they'll be in the corner rows.
That's correct.
So we've talked about desiring to be more, there's no plan to have any additional window space other than the little ones up here.
That's correct. And a lot of these, depending on what happens with the kitchen, right? So as kitchen expands, some of those upper windows may go away as well because they'll now be in the kitchen. But there are things that we can consider with bringing light in. Right now, you've got a little bit of clerestory light that brings a little bit of light down. Only brings it down over here because I think this was where the original chancel was, and this was used for worship. But there may be opportunities to bring light in from above as well. Yes.
I apologize if you've answered this already, but where in here would Sunday morning children's worship opportunities be? The Sunday school program. And is the preschool, the weekday preschool programs exclusively to be used for preschool, or will there be some full time?
Those, if I'm not mistaken, the preschool right now shares their spaces with Sunday school programming, the Sunday morning programming, and that's anticipated to continue. So where do you do that gathering now? Do you do that here at the start of the Sunday school?
Large group is in the sanctuary.
Okay.
And small groups are in classrooms upstairs and downstairs.
Okay. So I don't see any reason why that couldn't continue that way.
Well, we lost several of them downstairs, which is why I'm wondering, will we then just use the preschool space for Sunday school?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. And then, you know, we still have that one larger, which is a very flexible space, motor skills room, that is probably the largest size education space that remains in the building, and it's anticipated to be very flexible. Yes.
One of the things that we noticed when we were, the interior team was going to the other churches, so we went to 5 churches. 3 of the churches that Groth Design did had coffee bars. We thought that was kind of cool. We were looking in the back of gathering space, bringing people together, because we called all of our coffee being in here and people being out there and not being aware of it. My question is, you have the coffee bar right by the elevator and right by the stairway, which seems to also be a travel point between the back entry and the other entry. You have the information desk back where it currently is. What would be, or what might be the value of taking that coffee bar and switching it with the information desk so that the coffee bar wasn't where people were crossing roads to go in and out? It would be a little less congested and a little bit more welcoming for people to go and sit by the fireplace or wherever the window. Would that be a possibility?
It would be a plan. So the question is, should coffee bar, the hospitality bar, or the hospitality counter switch? Would that be better with the movement of traffic? I'll ask a further question. So back when those were set up, we weren't looking at expanding the kitchen. But with the gathering the fellowship space becoming all one space, it starts raising the question about, do we actually need a separate coffee area, or can the pass-through of that new kitchen actually go out into the fireside area and be, or maybe you have two pass-throughs. You have one serving area for food, and you have one that's more beverage related. There's lots of opportunity for exploring that when we know exactly that this is the right direction for the congregation, conceptually, and then how much gets.
And the other churches, the coffee bars are just kind of off.
Yeah.
It's just not, they're not, you know, like,
Right. Well, so I'm going to make note of the things that were discussed, so I can go back and yes, sure.
So the access to the new workroom would primarily be through the youth room? Am I reading that right?
From the building, yes. It's because we need an access point and there's no other way to get back and forth through there. My guess is, you know, that won't be happening during new programming. There is the ability to go outside and go into that room as well. Yeah.
I probably missed this. What was the purpose of the workroom?
So the workroom is primarily to be able to collect things that need to be used for maintenance in the church building and for storage that needs to be in the church building that doesn't get used all the time. And that space, I didn't really say this before, but that space is 1,200 square feet in footprint, but we've priced it with potential of putting mezzanine in the space that can double that square footage for storage. Thank you for the opportunity of serving the congregation and for having me here this morning. People that provided lunch and worship. It's nice working with you. I didn't get a chance because of COVID till now, but thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for all of the hard